Calgary Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting for September 25th, 2014. Tonight we'll have a presentation from CAFR, and you'll hear what that's all about in a minute. We have the first reading of a proposed fare structure change, followed by a public hearing on the issue. We'll then have public comment for general items, and people wishing to speak on either of the items, either of the opportunities will have a 3-minute limit. We'll then approve the consent calendar, which contains only minutes from an executive committee meeting, executive session. We have one action item tonight, and that's the approval of the FTA program management plan. We have no information items tonight, and we'll conclude with various reports. So, with that, we'll open the meeting, and please note attendance, and Director Kate Tarter will lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kate. Announcements or changes to the agenda? None? Okay, we have, first off, we have a presentation, and you'll learn what CAFR is.
Thank you. I'd ask Jared Isaacson, our finance manager, please come up.
Year number 2.
Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. This evening, I'd like to introduce to you Jeff White. He is the GFOA state representative. GFOA stands for the Government Finance Officers Association. It is the highest kind of oversight of government finance. And he's here this evening to present our CAFR award, which is actually the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting that is issued by the GFOA. So, Jeff White.
Thank you, Mr. Isaacson, President Thompson, Mr. Pollock, and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to present this award. As mentioned, my name is Jeff White. I am currently the Chief Financial Officer for Marion County. However, also as mentioned, I'm here tonight in a different capacity as a member of the Board of Directors for the Oregon Municipal Finance Officers Association. My assignment on that board this year is to be the GFOA representative and travel around and do these awards. So it's a good assignment. It's a good, fun thing to do. I want to take just a minute and tell you a little bit about each of those organizations. The Oregon Municipal Finance Officers Association maintains a membership of approximately 500 members from counties, cities, school districts, special districts, and other governmental entities, along with partners from associated businesses such as banks, software companies, attorneys, and bond underwriters. The organization was instituted to promote professionalism and excellence in public financial management through a commitment to the following 4 goals: fostering individual professional growth for government finance professionals, advancing the government finance profession, furthering standards and policies for the benefit of our communities and our members, and monitoring and reviewing legislative and judicial activities as they relate to our membership. OMFOA works toward those goals through providing training opportunities both at semi-annual conferences and via webinars, providing a committee structure for our members to participate in, and through an individual professional certification program. As I mentioned, my role is to be the GFOA representative. I wanted to speak about GFOA briefly just for a second. GFOA was founded in 1906 and represents public finance officials throughout the United States and Canada. The association has nearly 18,000 members from federal, state, and local governments. The GFOA's mission is to enhance and promote the professional management of governmental finance resources by identifying, developing, and advancing fiscal strategies, policies, and practices for the public benefit. To meet the many needs of its members, the organization provides best practice guidance, consulting, networking opportunities, publications, recognition programs, which is what we'll talk about tonight, research and training opportunities for those in the profession. Tonight, I'd like to present an award that was achieved by Salem-Keizer Transit through one of the recognition programs sponsored by GFOA. The Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Program, or the CAFR program, was established in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles, to prepare comprehensive annual financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure. In my opinion, of the many awards that GFOA has, this is the most difficult award to achieve. There's a checklist that's used to ensure that you meet the requirements, and that checklist is 79 pages long. It has over 500 items that must be addressed. Of those 500 items, there are 124 specific items that, if any one of them is not addressed or inappropriately addressed in the financial statements, can disqualify the entire report from the award. These required items vary from as simple as ensuring that there's a table of contents, or as complex as ensuring that your statements properly combine the expenses of individual functions and activities with related program revenues to calculate the net expense or revenue of each function and activity. In Oregon, there are only 112 recipients of this award for the fiscal year 12-13, of which only 14 of those are designated as enterprise-funded entities, which is the category that Salem Transit falls under. So you're one of 14 in Oregon that achieved this award. I understand that this is only the second consecutive year you received this award, so you should be congratulated on that also. By achieving this award, Salem-Keizer Transit has ensured that its financial statements are more than just numbers. The customers and citizens of Salem-Keizer Transit can be assured that its financial position is transparent, fully disclosed, and of the highest quality, comparable at a national level. Of course, the recognition should go beyond any one individual. It should be recognized at all finance department staff, Mr. Isaacson, the finance manager, other district staff and management, Mr. Pollock, the general manager, you as the board of directors, and even your budget committee, who has an impact on how your financial statements and financial operations run. I think the customers and citizens of Salem-Keizer Transit should be proud, and I would like to congratulate all of you on this achievement. I think we have a specific thing to do now to hand off, and this is, they used to hand out a separate one every year, but now they have a nice marble plaque that each year you get the year noted and it gets stuck on here. I think there's also a certificate that probably hangs somewhere, so we'll hand that, oh, am I supposed to talk in here now? We'll hand that to you. Congratulations. Congratulations, Jared.
Thank you so much for
You bet. I don't know if anybody wants that.
Get a picture. Better get Jared up there. There he is.
So there's chariots in the background.
Yeah, there you go.
We're friendly?
Well, ours are. We got the plaque to prove it.
Well, Jared left, but Jared's still in the door. It's interesting, the last 2 years, Jared's been in charge of this operation and he's gotten these awards. I wonder what happened before that. Anyway, really appreciate all your efforts. Okay, we'll go to the first reading of public hearing ordinance number 2014-02. The question and issue, shall the board direct the first reading of ordinance number 2014-02 by title and set a public hearing beginning with the September 25th, 2014 board meeting to October 23rd, 2014 board meeting to receive citizen testimony regarding the proposed changes in the fare structure, fare programs, and fare levels as described in proposed ordinance number 2014-02 in Amendment A pursuant to ORS 198.540 and ORS 267-.150. Alan.
Great, thank you. Ted Stonecliffe, Long Range Planning analyst will present the staff report.
President Thompson and members of the board. I'll be presenting a proposal tonight for changes to our fares, including asking for the first reading of proposed fare ordinance 2014-02 by title. Fares must be established by ordinance under state statute. The district's public participation policy, number 108, requires a 30-day public hearing. Our public hearing was opened by the board at the July 24th, 2014 board meeting, and public notices were published in the Statesman Journal and Keizer Times newspapers on June 24th and September 19th. The board has directed staff to, in line with the recommended practice in the district's strategic plan, to review fares every 2 years. The last fare change was in 2010, when the fares increased from $1.25 to $1.50 for the single adult cash fare. Staff has recommended the fare increases to: 1, maintain existing service levels, which support phase 1 of the Moving Forward project; 2, keep up with inflation; and 3, increase the fare box recovery ratio to be more in line with our peer transit agencies. Right now, Salem-Keizer Transit is around 13%, and our peers are around 17%, and this would increase our percentage. As shown in attachment C, our public outreach efforts are numerous. Not only have we had public notices published in the Statesman Journal and Keizer Times, we have had our proposal on our website. We have delivered take-ones on all of our buses, which seem to have been very successful. We've held numerous open houses in many rural and urban locations, and these will be ongoing until this process closes at the October 23rd, 2014 board meeting. Also, our Citizens Advisory Committee recommends adoption as is provided in your packet this evening. Written comments received to date, or at least when the packet was delivered, are in attachment D, and a supplement has been provided by Linda tonight for everybody who is interested in the additional 7 pages of comments. On top of that, we have sent out an email blast to about 1,500 people, and we're able to track those emails, which ones are opened and which ones are who are clicking the links in the emails. And of that 1,500 people, about 400 people opened the email, and 140 people clicked on the link to look at the proposal, so that's encouraging. Now, in attachment A, this is the proposed fare ordinance. Table one of that proposed ordinance shows our proposal for our fare increases. Just do a quick summary of the highlights of that table. For the Chariot system, the single adult cash fare would increase from $1.50 to $1.60. The day pass would stay constant at $3.25. The cost for a 30-day electronic fare card would increase from $40 to $45. And there's some options that we've included in this table, such as a 10-trip electronic fare card or incremental 30-day passes that could be loaded on an electronic fare card. And these are options that we would like to have available to us in the years to come as our technology increases with fare collection. For the cart system, the single adult cash fare would increase from $2 to $2.25. The red line would be divided into a shopper shuttle and dial-a-ride. For the shopper shuttle, the fare would increase from $1 to $1.25, and the dial-a-ride would increase to the same level as our cherry lift fare at $3.20. Finally, the 1X Express monthly pass is proposed to increase from $75 to $85. However, the cash fare, single adult cash fare, is not proposed to increase, which is in line with the recommendation from SMART, our partner agency to the north in Wilsonville, who would like to keep that at a constant $3. At this time, staff recommends that the board direct the first reading of ordinance 2014-02 by title and set a public hearing from the September 25th, 2014 board meeting to the October 23rd, 2014 board meeting to receive citizen testimony regarding proposed changes to the fare levels, fare structure, and fare programs pursuant to ORS 198.540 and ORS 267.150 as described in attachment E. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Marcia?
Do you want the motion right now?
Well, let's do the motion first. Go ahead.
I move that the board direct the first reading of ordinance number 2014-2 by title and set a public hearing from the September 25th, 2014 board meeting to the October 23rd, 2014 board meeting to receive citizen testimony regarding the proposed changes to the fare structure, rates, and effective date for transportation services as described in ordinance 2014-02.
Okay, moved and seconded. Now discussion. Marcia?
I have a question about the comments that we've received in writing. If we start comments at the board meeting.
No, we do not. The comments received to date, we published a public notice in the June 24th Statesman Journal newspaper, and with that publication, we were able to start collecting comments at that point.
I know, but I would think that the comments that we get are part of the public record.
Absolutely. All the comments that we've received to date should be in your packet.
Yeah, as part of tonight, we're entering these into public record as we distributed them to you tonight. As part of the
Part of
public
the
hearing.
public hearing, yes.
I just wanted to make that very clear because they obviously came in before opening the public hearing.
And I noticed from a lot of the comments in there that obviously the people had been to one of your meetings because they knew about the various things and they spoke about how much they like the innovations that are included in here. Anyone else have some?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So during the public hearing process, we're going to be getting comments, and if some of the comments lead us to want to change what's in here, how does that work?
You would, upon the consideration of the ordinance for adoption, you could entertain amendments to the text of the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Motion before this? Okay.
First, we got to
I've
pass.
got to vote on it
Gotta
first, I
vote.
think. So, okay. No more comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2014-02 by title. Ordinance number 2014-02, repealing ordinance number 12-02 and establishing the Salem Area Mass Transit District fare categories and rates and establishing an effective date. Anything else you want to do on that? Okay. Next will be the public comments on this public hearing. And we have one person signed up. One person signed up, Mark Connect.
Yes.
Public hearing is
Yes.
open here. I'll open it with a bang.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mark Knick, and I'm on the advisory board. And I went along with this, but I have some concerns of people that are on fixed incomes, especially people that are on Social Security. And actually, we all know that the economy is such that it doesn't really warrant raising the prices. Some of us can absorb, especially as people with disabilities, and we can absorb a couple, $3, that's fine. But the economy does not warrant raising the prices right now, in my opinion. The price of food keeps going up all the time. I realize the price of fuel is going up to run these buses, and the price of propane. Most of your buses are run by propane now, aren't they, or natural gas?
Natural gas.
And so I don't know how much natural gas costs a gallon or whatever, how they ever measure it, but that's basically my concern, and so that's all I wanted to say about that. And like I said, people on fixed incomes, and also these monthly passes. How do they pay for those? Do they have to pay for those all in one shot, or do they make payments, or how's that going to work?
If a person is buying a monthly pass, they pay for the full month. Or, actually, we should say a 30-day pass, not a monthly pass.
Yeah, but a yearly pass is what I was referring to, I guess.
Yeah, they would pay the full
Okay.
at time of purchase.
Okay, and then sometime I'd like to speak on some of the bus route changes too.
Okay, you're signed up on the next public comment,
Okay.
comment period.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I have no one else signed up on the fairs. Did somebody else in the audience wish to speak on the fairs? Okay, seeing none, this public hearing will remain. Oh, John,
I've got a question on it.
get on the microphone then.
Right. There it is. And Mark's comments brought it to mind. On the annual pass, can we take like Visa?
I believe we do take Visa, yes.
Okay,
At
so if that-
customer service, yes.
Okay, so if that were the case, then they could pay over time on their Visa. All right, thank you.
Okay, this public hearing will remain open until October 23rd. That's our board meeting night. And at that time, we'll also have another public comment period, and then we'll deliberate on the motion itself. Okay, did we do that okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, time for public comments. Each person's comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we'll go to the list here. And Mark, you're first on the list here, too.
I live at 1835 Beach Avenue Northeast, Apartment 2, out there by the fairgrounds, and I hope you keep the 3 has worked very well on the half hour, and the 20 or the 13 that goes down there, that's worked fairly well. And then I understand there's some changes. I just wish, well, I guess the 14, I guess is, guess you're going to cut that out. I was kind of hoping you would keep that, because I don't know how I'm going to get to the Croc Center. I guess I'll have to ride cherry lifts down there now, because I have to go down and do my water aerobics and stuff. I'm getting lined up to have hip surgery here pretty soon. But the route changes, I haven't really studied that much, but people with disabilities and wheelchairs and some of the routes that you have proposed changes on that's, I have some concerns in that area.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'll be looking at that very closely down through the future here, and so thank you very much.
You bet. Okay, next is Liz Collins.
Good evening, Board of Directors.
Good morning, evening, whatever it is.
My name is Liz Collins. I live at 6530 Huntington Circle, Southeast. I would just like to say that when you had your outreach meeting at the South Salem Senior Center, that I was very interested in the route changes. And I have kind of started a motion towards collecting signatures and getting letter writing and things like that, because I do feel that the senior center out there, which is totally volunteer run, not supported by the city in any way, is a wonderful place for senior citizens. And what you're proposing is leaving them a 1/4 mile walk to the senior center by closing Route 21, Reese Hill. So I have a letter from Hank Shouty, who is the president of the board of directors of Battle Creek Commons, where I live. The Battle Creek Board of Directors would like to add their voice to the chorus of Salem citizens who feel that the ending of Route number 21, Reese Hill Loop, is a huge disservice to our neighborhood. We understand that Route 21 has low ridership, but for the people who use the bus, it is a necessity. Battle Creek Commons is a neighborhood of 160 units with the large majority of residents over the age of 60. The aging of this area will continue to increase as people look to downsize their living spaces. This will increase ridership on the Reese Hill bus loop. If you drop Route 21, you will lose ridership, and there is a possibility that you will not gain enough ridership on your new, more direct, more frequent routes. It would be hard to predict that running buses every 15 minutes will pick up more ridership. The same riders may just take a bus 15 minutes earlier or later, but there could be no increase in overall ridership. Thus, in total, you might lose ridership. Another concern for our neighborhood is the stopping of Route number 21 and ending the southeast portion of the Salem bus service at Walm Lane. Will have an adverse effect on our South Salem Senior Center, which is a vital, self-supporting service to the elderly of the Salem community. The majority of the citizens enjoy the South Salem Senior Center will not be able to traverse the 1/4 mile walk from the last bus stop. These are people that have paid their taxes and that have supported the bus service for many years. Please note the use of the word service. Chariots provides bus service and should continue to do so. Thank you. Battle Creek Commons Board of Directors, Hank Shouty, President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. You have a question? Stand by for a question.
I have a question. Did someone come and give a formal presentation to your board, or did your board participate in some of the open houses?
Open house at South Salem Senior Center, which is across the street from our clubhouse.
Okay. And were you at any time, did they inform you about our proposed project? There's a pilot program for flex transportation. Was that explained to you?
It was explained, but it also was truth-telling in that it is, in the future, not really ready to go.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Other questions for Liz? Go ahead, John.
Your last comment may have answered the question, and that is that your community at Battle Creek is currently served by Route 21.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. Because that's not my part of town, and I'm not quite sure where the routes and the Battle Creek community is. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Marcia.
Marcia?
Liz, thanks very much for coming and sharing. Liz was with the YWCA for many years, and in that role served a lot of people in the community, so thank you for coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Liz.
Okay.
And Stephanie Ellis.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for listening to some of us try to organize everything.
Get closer to the microphone, please.
How about that?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to stand up and talk to you folks. I realize that you all have certain areas that you live in, so each area for the buses would be a part of your community. I live in town and I use at least 5 different routes. And so the ability to connect to these routes has become difficult at times because of the changes that have been a part of the circumstances with Courthouse Square. My concern at this point is that, as Liz spoke, that the elimination of Route 21 wouldn't just affect not only folks at Battle Creek, but there are a number of different folks that live on Sunnyside Road nearly all the way to Boone. And then there are folks who live on Boone Road that would have to rely solely on bus number 8. And that goes in the opposite direction of where any of these folks live off of Commercial and Battle Creek. If that were to be the case, and they wanted to take place and put the possible standing location for the bus transfer to get to a point of coming back into town, there are very little avenues for any one of us to live, who live, on Boone Road and Lone Oak. There are very little avenues for us to get to the point of where Wallen Creek is. Otherwise, the other option is, again, bus number 8 or bus number 1. And since bus number 1 stops near Winco at Sunnyside and Hillpiker, and number 8 runs strictly on Liberty Road, there are really no avenues available to crisscross the ability for anyone to connect to get downtown. The other note I had is something I wrote up earlier in the month, and it's going to be a little difficult for me to say this, but I will try to do the best I can. This letter is addressed to the board members and the stakeholders of the Salem-Keizer Transit Board and District. I am writing this letter in response of information being given out about upcoming changes to all bus routes. I am disappointed that the district is willing to take on this project, and that there are at least 6+ routes that will have major changes in the next few months. I ride bus 21 and I live on Boone Road Southeast. This bus and number 8 are the only 2 buses that are available to anyone out past Idlewood, Browning, and Commercial. The standing map that exists is unique in that they've made some changes over the last 10-15 years. The proposed changes that are being slated to be looked at is not exactly beneficial to me. I don't see how the district can create a map that is being said that the type of process that would be allowed. I find very difficult that anyone on the board had to agree to take the time and resources to do this. It makes very little sense to me. If I wanted to go down Commercial, it's better to go downtown to catch bus number 19 or number 9 to get to Keizer. I cannot see bus number 1 traveling from one end of town clear to the other, when at one given time, bus number 1 having to complete its entire route, which included Reese Hill, it took them more than 10 minutes and would not be able to make it downtown for any of the routes to be for those to transfer. It would take them another 15 minutes to wait, or another half hour or an hour to wait for the next bus that was needed. The city of Salem has grown in wide margins, and I am finding myself a little shocked that any and all monies that were designed for this process has been denoted for possibly agreeing to this. There are at least 6+, as I've repeated, there are 6+ routes that either A, will be completely changed or will be eliminated. And there is a number of people that have no way to get around town. Taxis, cherry lift, and any other means of transportation can get expensive. And for those who are on a limited income, that is not nice. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Bob, did you want to talk about your ride?
Pardon?
You rode 21?
Yes. I rode Route 21, and I think that it's a conundrum because one of the problems is you can't really truncate it anywhere because there's no place to turn the bus around. And so I hope that we can find a solution, but we can't. We're kind of looking at options now, and it will have to probably be in a work session or we deal with this. But I can see the problems out there, and I talked to the bus driver and some of the people on the bus. Director Evans, who's not with us this evening, has also ridden Route 21. Route 21, most of Route 21's in my sub-district, so I'm the guy that gets the heat. But I think if you live north of Boone Road, there isn't quite the problem because the new alignment will serve that area. The north end of Route 21 will still have service. It won't maybe on the same streets, but it'll be close to people's homes. But the south end will be the area that basically Sunnyside Road and Reese Hill are the two areas that need service, and it's just hard to figure out how to do that. So I guess it's going to have to put our thinking caps on and see what we can do. And it's not a I think you are doing the right thing. You're bringing it to our attention. You're making your wants known as citizens, and that's how American democracy works. So I'm glad that you came, and let's hopefully try to find a solution for this.
Yeah, and we are in the information gathering stage. We're not in the decision making or trying to do anything with this information yet. So this is coming in July?
June.
Well, June, yeah. Next week kind of finishes up the organized portion of the outreach, and then we'll move into analyzing that outreach and putting together some potential modifications to the service plan to present to the board and go from there.
I would just like to echo what Bob said about hearing from people, because it's a little bit crazy because we both have parts of west of Commercial where a lot of this route information is. And I've had contact personally at home with people calling me about Route 21. I also have concerns because the southwest area has continually lost service out. Every time we've made cuts, we've lost service and for the sake of efficiency, I think that we're getting to the point where we're not providing the service that needs to be provided if people are going to be able to access the buses.
John?
Well, you folks in the Reese Hill Loop area have my sympathy. Even though I live about as far away from there as you can get and still be in Salem. I'm out very far northeast, but 7 years ago when we had the service cuts due to the fact that we couldn't pass a bond measure, I lost my route. So here I am on the board and I don't have transit service, but don't have scheduled transit service, which I dearly wish we did have. I miss it a lot. But I think the most effective thing you can do that I've not heard anybody talk about yet is that far more effective than getting petitions signed would be if in the coming months you'd go out and climb on that bus. The reason we're talking about this is because that bus route is underutilized. I see in many of the submissions that we've received that people say that they don't currently use the bus, but they're getting older, they plan to use it in the future. If people would go out there and hop on that bus and occupy the seats, and we got 90 more people a day on that route, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So I think that's the most effective thing, ride the bus.
Thanks, John. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to add that that isn't my area, but I was getting calls this week and talking about seniors and the petition, and definitely people are calling. The person couldn't show up, so I know that there's a lot of people in the area that are talking about it.
That's right. We have, it looks like we may have one other person or persons that have signed up. Is that right, or was this something you wrote, Mark? I can't tell on here. Was there someone else that wished to speak on that? Okay. Thank you. We'll close. Anybody else out there want to talk about it? Sure, brief, very brief.
Just in addition to what I had spoken
Yes.
of.
I'll just join you.
You just joined me, okay? You'll have to introduce yourself.
Huh?
I said you're going to have to introduce yourself.
My name's Vicky. Everybody knows me. Sit on. We're typically on the bus together. We're good friends. The fact of the matter is, John, you said, get people on Route 21. Fact of the matter is, out where I live in Battle Creek, a lot of people have cars, but I'll tell you one thing. Many times, people have seen me hop the bus or miss the bus because it's been early. Well, the fact of the matter is, the people out in Battle Creek Commons, as Liz said, they're growing older, and if bus 21 were to be eliminated, as they get older, fact of the matter is, when it's gone, if they need it, it won't be there. But I have talked to numerous people because I'm also gathering signatures. People want to see that bus stay because they may need it in 6 months, they may need it in 2 years. What happens when it's not there?
Right. Okay.
And the other part of that is that even though 21 is the farthest of the routes southbound, to have it completely connected to bus number 1 that would eventually then go out to Keizer, I can't see that being applicable. It doesn't have any merit. The amount of time that the gentleman that took to set this all up, there was one thing that he didn't do that would have been really helpful, and the map that was generated for the proposal did not have the numbers currently for the routes that are existing. I realized that he was looking at a map that would be possible as to how those routes would be done, but the letters mean nothing to me. I have no idea of the corresponding connections that they're referring to the existing map that now is online. I'm just a little shocked and surprised that the monies that were spent on this couldn't be used to design better routes, to design better communications. We've had a lot of people who try to come to these meetings. The times that were set weren't very, very good. You had them in the afternoon, very little in the evenings. The areas that you proposed were at times difficult to get to. As Vicki said, there are people who are not able to ride cherry lift or take a taxi because it's too expensive. The bus system at this stage is their only transportation. And as she also mentioned, with the community having older and older folks not being able to drive or choosing not to drive any longer, the status quo of what this bus system can offer, if this proposal goes through, you're looking at a very big loss, a very big loss.
Or your individuals with disabilities that have dogs and or are in chairs. The fact of the matter is they're not going to be able to get around, and they're going to be stranded in their own community. And if that happens, they're not going to be able to volunteer, they're not going to be able to get groceries, they're not going to be able to take care of their children, whatever the case might be. And that's devastating because, for example, our dogs, they're able to go a certain distance, but if you have a service dog, you may go maybe a half a mile, then our dogs get tired or we physically get tired, and then we're stuck. And then what do we rely on? Even if we have our cell phones, families can't necessarily come and get us.
Well, we have Red Line and Cherry Lift, and I think the time has
Cherry lifts
expired.
become too expensive.
Cherry lift is cost prohibitive.
Your time is up, sorry. I think we understand your concerns, and we understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
So, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Especially thank you for coming.
And especially thank you for coming. Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar. you've had yours. Okay, we're done.
I would like to pull the consent calendar.
You'd like to pull it?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have to have a second and a motion? Just pull it. Okay, so we'll deal with issues that are pulled from the consent calendar. And that's the, where is it? Executive session 8/28/14.
I thought that the other thing was on, oh, okay, I'm confused. I read it down the wrong way.
Oh, so are you moving the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent calendar. I was looking sideways because
there
I
a
didn't
second?
have the agenda in front of me.
Any discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, action items, approval, is this one you're talking about? Approval?
Yes.
Okay, approval of the FDA program management plan.
Thank you. Ted Stonecliffe will present this report.
President Thompson and members of the board, I bring to you tonight an update for the program management plan, and we're seeking approval of that update tonight. The program management plan has been created to support the federal funding program that is used for CARTS, Chairlift, and nonprofit organizations. It's called Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program. And this management plan must be updated in order to apply for these federal funds. As a direct recipient of these federal grant dollars, Salem-Keizer Transit must have this program management plan approved and in place. And this describes the administrative processes, policies, and procedures of the grant funds. The board must approve this update as we discussed at the September board work session and provided in attachment A. In order to make application, we intend to make an application for these funds on October 1st. The reason for the update is largely due to an update made by the Federal Transit Administration that was in response to federal legislation. The Federal Transportation Bill has a long name, Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act, also known as MAP 21. There were certain requirements that needed updating, and we have made those updates. The program management plan addresses Salem-Keizer Transit's approach to 15 different areas for administering these federal funds, and I'll quickly go through those 15 areas. First, program goals and objectives. Number 2, roles and responsibilities. 3, coordination. 4, eligible subrecipients. 5, local share and local funding requirements. 6, project selection criteria and method of distributing funds. 7, annual program of projects development and approval process. Number 8, state administration, planning, and technical assistance. Number 9, the transfer of funds. 10, private sector participation.
It's been raining.
Number 11, civil rights. 12, Americans with Disabilities Act reporting and its inclusive accommodations for Section 504. Number 13, program measures. 14, program management. And 15, finally, other provisions. If approved by the board at the September 25th, 2014 board meeting, this update to the program management plan will be uploaded to the FTA document management storehouse called TEAM on October 1st in preparation to apply for these important federal grant funds. Staff is recommending that the board approve this update as provided in attachment A, and I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Marcia.
It was my sort of thought that at the work session where we went through this on these sessions, that we had decided that Salem-Keizer Transit will seek to, on every segment except the safety and security. And I note that on pages 33 and 34, that will seek to is missing. And since one of them is the one that I brought up, that we do not have total control over what happens with parts of our funding, since we are dependent upon the voters, we can't do something like diversify without the cooperation of other people. So I believe it may be a typo in just forgetting to put the seek to on those sections.
Which section exactly is that? I'm sorry, I don't have my page
Section
numbers
4.
on. Is it Section 4, Lead Transit's Development?
Section
All
5.
I think what you're saying, where we have Salem-Keizer Transit will, you believe from the work session, it should say Salem-Keizer Transit will seek to. And all,
Correct.
and all the
In everything except for the
Except for
safety
security.
issues,
Yeah,
because
we
I
can-
thought that was
we can change that.
sort of a suggested thing that we thought would make us
Correct.
more honest in the community, because we cannot do some of these things without participation from other people. Like we can't do the land use development stuff without the cooperation of the cities and the county.
So we
All
can,
right, we'd be
we
happy
can
to make
correct
those
that in the
changes.
motion.
Okay, any other questions? We did spend quite a bit of time on this at the work session, so. Okay, do we have a motion and mention the amendment?
I will move adoption with the amendments as discussed at I move that the board approve an update to the program management plan as provided in attachment A as amended in the discussion, and authorize the general manager to apply for federal funds provided under 49 U.S.C. 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Do you have something?
No.
Okay.
I said I just liked.
Oh, you're a late aye. Okay, no information items tonight, and we jump right into our reports. 2014, fiscal year 2014 annual performance report.
Thank you. Jared Chalk will present the report.
President Thompson and members of the board, tonight I will be speaking on the annual performance report for our various services. As you recall, Policy 109, the Urban Service Design Principles, was recently adopted. It's that policy that guided the report generation and included a minimum types of performance reports that we've included. The presentation that I'm going to walk through this evening is a highlight of the provides highlights of the report that is available in full in your packet. Reviewing service over the past few years, the word that I would use to describe it is stable or perhaps consistent. This chart shows fixed route revenue hours. This is a measurement of how much we have invested in service throughout the years, and it is, again, fairly consistent and stable. There is an increase in the most recent year, which is due predominantly to the increase in service on Route 11, which you'll be able to see in some of the later slides. This slide shows that exact same revenue hours, but broken down by route. The most notable change on this chart pertains to Route 11, which is one of our corridor routes, and you can see had a dramatic increase in the total number of revenue hours. This is due to the extension from Schenectady Community College to Keizer Transit Center. Notably, one of the other notable routes that changed during this time was Route 18, which received no increase in revenue hours, which, as you may recall, was because we were able to do that change using existing revenue hours in the route. Reviewing revenue miles, this has also been stable, with an increase due predominantly to Route 11 again. The fixed route revenue miles by route shows a similar picture as the revenue hours did. It's nearly, the total revenue miles per day is some, I think 9,000 revenue miles per day, which is an interesting figure because it actually means that Chariot's buses on a given day drive the sufficient distance to get from Salem to New York City and back every day with enough miles left over to get you to Chicago, but you'd be stuck till the next day. So kind of an interesting number of miles that are driven. And they're done so to provide 13,000 trips per day. You can see that these charts as well have fluctuated up and down, and but there's not enough to indicate a trend. It's slightly down over the previous periods, and does amount to a little bit over 13,000 trips per day, which is a tremendous. Go ahead. Is there a question?
Yeah, quick question. So the increase in Route 11, is that due to the elimination of Route 4? Is that where that additional revenue time came from? Just out of curiosity.
A great portion of the increase from 11 and the revenue miles for 18 and the other additional service changes that we had at that time were largely from Route 4. There's a little bit over that is accounted for in the total. But yeah, the great majority of it was paid for that way, you could say. That leads us to boardings, which did. I'm sorry. The paratransit boardings, which did see a pretty substantial increase back in fiscal year 13, but due to the DD53, the extra DD53 rides, but has been stable since then. Rural transportation, this is our CART service, is on a slow incline in service, increase in service, a ridership, which we believe due to additional promotion that's occurring and better signage out on the road. We're doing about 500 boardings per day in the rural service. The Red Line is still a fairly new service, and it appears to be a substantial increase, but the axis on this chart is different than the other ones. So there's relatively few passengers on this, although that service is doing well and increasing. Breaking down our fixed route boardings into our categories, you can see that most routes had similar performance to the previous year, with the most substantial increase being, again, for Route 11, which wasn't a surprise because that is where we invested most attention over the past year. One item that we talk frequently about is productivity, or fixed route boardings per revenue hour. We have targets that are outlined on this chart for the first time, and those were also enumerated in Policy 109. Most of the routes are near the targets, and we do expect that with route changes that we are proposing for June of 2015 as part of the Moving Forward project, for most of these measurements to improve. There's a notable change in Route 11, and it's kind of interesting. Our productivity appears to have decreased fairly dramatically on Route 11. This is due to the ridership not keeping pace with the additional hours that we put on the route. And if you look at the additional area we were providing service, it's not surprising. We're going on Shamawa Road in areas where there's fairly low density. It's providing service to the anchor of Keizer Transit Center, but en route between Chemeketa Community College and Keizer, it doesn't have the ridership generation that you find on other areas of Route 11.
What miles do you ride?
Exactly, and it's precisely what it is. That is also an element that in the Moving Forward project, in the latest design, actually sort of swaps service for what's Route 15 now, putting the 15-minute Route 11 frequency on Verta Lane, where there's a much higher density. So it's another area where we expect to be able to move Route 11 back to and past the target as well.
I have another question.
Sure.
So just to be clear, so we increased frequency on Route 11 on Lancaster. It did result in increased boardings. The increase in boardings just wasn't as much as the increase in service.
That's absolutely correct. So you can see on Route 11, in the previous year you had close to 35 boardings per hour, and the hope would be if we implemented an additional hour of service, you would have an additional 35 people boarding the bus. And what happened was, due to the area where we added the Route 11, we didn't see 35. We saw a number that was significantly lower than that, which brings us at our new average boardings per hour, which is just short of our target of 25.
Did
Krebs?
Did these comparisons, are we talking about both years going all the way to the Keizer Transit Center? It seems to me that we didn't go all the way to the Keizer Transit Center, and so that's why the ridership was higher.
That's correct, Director Krebs. We didn't. This year represents the first full year that we've had service to Keizer Transit Center from Route 11, and so it increased Route 11's ridership, but it didn't increase it as much as you get further south on Route 11, where there's a greater density. So it did increase, but just not as much as it has other places in that route.
Route 3 certainly saw an increase.
Route 3 is certainly one of our star routes, and was, as you know, we recently completed a comprehensive system analysis which had in-depth route profiles for each one of the routes that we have, and Route 3 was certainly highlighted as one of the most productive of our routes, and you can really see it reflected here throughout the course of the year.
And that's a 30-minute route? 30-minute
Yes.
frequency?
Yeah.
Is it 30 minutes all day, or is it just 30 minutes peak?
I believe it's 30 minutes all day. Is that, yeah. One area, this data is directly from the Jarrett Walker and Associates report, which has already been presented to the board, but it is on-time performance is one of the items listed in the policy 109, and so we've included it here. And it is an area for concern. It deals with on-time performance. What these numbers mean, these are at the route level, and they indicate when the bus arrives at the transit mall. So early means 1 or more minutes before schedule. On time means 0 to 5 minutes after the scheduled arrival time. And late means 5 or more minutes after the scheduled time. The fact that there's very few lates and that we are early so often in this data doesn't mean here that we're what's called running hot. What it means is that there's excess time in our routes. You have buses routinely returning to the transit mall ahead of schedule, which is which is one of the strong justifications for the Moving Forward project and retooling some of our routes so that we can take greater advantage of that extra time and use the resources more efficiently. So the schedule has excess running time at the time points and at the trip level. The data, as you recall, from the Moving Forward project also did indicate, or from the comprehensive system analysis, did indicate that some of our buses in the segment level are running hot as well, which is something that we're also going to be investigating, and we hope to have substantial correction to that as we move forward with system changes. Was there a question, Director Kelly?
When you're talking about is there a consistency on when it's early and when it's late, and is it due to times of the day and traffic patterns?
We do have, I have seen that data. It's in the CSA. I'd be speculating if I tried to remember what it was now, but it is broken down by time of day as well as by segment. And I can bring that back, but I don't recall off the top of my head what those numbers looked like. And here's the exact same data, just in a chart. The presentation, the full packet includes pie charts for each route, which are available for your reference. But as a total, you can see that our system average has our buses returning back earlier than they should, 53% of the time, and that's where a lot of the extra savings that allows greater flexibility with those routes comes from.
I have a question about the route timing throughout the day. Like as Director Kelly was mentioning, during the peak hour, there's more congestion. So when you create the route and have the timing for how long it takes to get from point A to point B, is that looking for an average, or is it based on the peak? And would that explain why maybe off-peak it might be early all the time? And if so, is there a way to have a shorter time between endpoints when there's less traffic, or does that create a challenge?
Well, Director Coy, that's a good question, a good thing to point out. There is, you can change how you develop your schedules, and you can route based on the worst case scenario or the best case scenario, and you have to decide how often you're going to be wrong with your schedule, essentially. Most of our schedules are designed for heavy traffic, the worst case scenario, providing the greatest guarantee of consistency. The problem with doing that is that you build in a tremendous amount of slack into your schedules throughout the day. And we believe that we can tighten that up, not to certainly be the worst case scenario where you'd be, or the best case scenario where you may miss many time points, but there is a healthy room for being a little bit more liberal with how that planning is done. And that was one of the big recommendations from the CSA, was to take a hard look at those schedules. Another important measurement that we're including in our reports now is the load level, and these are also taken from the CSA. The load levels are going to be an increasingly important measure that we will be talking about. And the reason why, well, first let me explain what the load level is. The load level is how full the bus is. On average, the average load level means, on an average segment, if you were to observe the bus in the case of Route 1, it would have an average of 6 people on that bus. At the peak time, in the maximum segment, you would see 39 people on average on that route. This is an important measurement for us to start talking about more, because as we talk about combining routes like Route 19 and Route 1, which is proposed in the Moving Forward project, simple boardings may not tell the full story about how active that bus is. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to have to start talking about more, is load levels for those vehicles. Route 11 does have the highest maximum right now, at a maximum of 50 passengers on the vehicle, with Route 14 representing the lowest maximum load. The Route 3, which was mentioned earlier, has the highest average load, meaning when seeing Route 3, that's the vehicle that is going to, on average, appear to have the most people on board. And once again, Route 14 is also the lowest average load factor as well. So we can expect to do more of this sort of analysis in the future. And finally, the fare box recovery rate. This is a high-level fare box recovery rate analysis, meaning that we took the total fares, essentially revenue, divided by the number of vehicles on a route. We took the total expenses and divided it, total expenses divided into the route, total fares divided by the number of people that were riding on those routes. And what this shows, and as I said before, this is high level, but what this indicates is how much of each route is paid for by the fares collected on that route. We're going to have more detailed fare box level analysis in the future. This is, as I said before, it's a high level, but what it shows is that 13.2% of the Route 1 expense is paid for with ridership. And it varies per route and generally directly relates to productivity. But it's another important measure to think about when we think about both the usefulness and the cost of individual routes. One notable item is the 1X and 2X would actually be a higher rate than is listed here, because a higher fare exists for those routes. And since this is a summary level report, it's based on the total. We would like to get to the level where we have individual revenue for, say, the 1X or the 24 or the 11, as to provide that fare box recovery rate for that route. So it's a little high level at this point.
And we don't have that slide.
Yeah.
The fare box
No.
recovery rate
No,
slide?
we have that, so could you please send it?
Yeah.
I will make sure that you get that. It should be in there. So,
I have one additional question. Can you refresh my memory on the load levels in the early and the on time? What was the time frame that Jared Walker Associates were doing that? And what, it was October last year?
it was October of last year. It was over a 2-week period.
A 2-day period?
2 week.
2 week.
It was a 2-week period. And if I had to remember the exact dates, I couldn't right now. But it was over 2 weeks. We made sure that there were no holidays included. And it is an industry standard practice of measuring ridership and on-time performance. A team of, from Jarrett Walker and Associates rode every route and every trip at least once on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Our data and industry best practice suggests that Monday and Fridays aren't the best day to take the pulse of your transit system because there's often artificially low ridership. You also don't want to do it around holidays. And the fall and spring tend to be the best times to get an accurate measure of what your transit system is doing because school's in session, things are generally moving along at a fairly normal pace during those periods.
Okay.
Mine was more of a comment why I wanted that last slide, because I think that's a really great representation of how our fares compared to our expenses. And I had somebody stop me today and ask about, why were we raising the, fares, and we had a discussion about it, and they didn't realize, some of the percentages in money. But I like that slide because that would be a simple one to share with people.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that it's not in there. My apologies, it should be in the packet.
I'm shocked you're human like the rest of us.
Well, one of the things that got me from that slide was the system average recovery rate was 11.6, which is actually even lower than reported in our fare proposal, where we were talking about our recovery rate as being 13 and a little more. So it's close enough that I'm not concerned, but it was interesting that it showed an even lower recovery rate than all of the already low 13% from earlier.
Director Hamill, that's actually a good point. It's something that we discussed when we were putting together the slide. The difference is largely because the fare information that's being shared is from NTD, or it is the same information that was submitted through NTD so that we could make comparisons to other agencies. That data is 2 years old. And so as our fares have maintained constant, expenses have increased, and therefore the fare box recovery rate has diminished. Yeah, and
Great explanation.
but we did notice that as well.
I have a question about
Brad,
that.
go ahead.
Does this take into account like a 30-day pass, or is this just the fare that was paid as someone boarded the bus?
It does take into account, this is total sales. So it includes 30-day passes, a one-way fare, an annual pass is even included in there.
Because it's electronic, is that how you're able to determine the proportion of a 30-day pass that is going towards any given route?
This data, and the reason that it's high level is because it's pulled from the financial system. So it's literally sales. So you take the total sales, you divide it by the number of passengers. Where we can get, and where we're going to start to get more nuanced with that data, is now that we have electronic fare collection, we could say a 30-day pass was purchased and it was used 100 times, 10 times on this route. Therefore, 10% of the revenue associated with that 30-day pass gets now associated with Route 1. And we are becoming increasingly able to do that. This level report is rather high level for that, though.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments? Thanks, Jared.
All right, thank you.
Okay, board and committee reports. Start with the Mid-Valley Council of Governments. Did have an executive session, an executive committee meeting where we discussed the director's work plan for the next year. And that's about it. I didn't have a regular meeting. Special Transportation Fund didn't meet, right, John? Yeah, I think we meet this next month, or pretty soon, yeah. Willamette, Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation.
We did not meet in September. Instead, we said goodbye to Richard Schmidt, who had been with the Council of Governments, starting with a temporary 18-month position something like 35 years ago. But it was a good send-off and very clever people over there with a
absolutely
goodbye letter utilizing different candy bars. It was really incredible.
It was interesting, all right. Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Study Policy Committee.
We had a meeting last Tuesday, and there wasn't a lot of exciting stuff other than Jared Chalk presented the moving forward plan to the group, and some of these road-focused people were starting to talk about maybe we should look at some transit things more in line with moving people around this community. So it was some enlightenment came out of the meeting, but other than that, the meeting was pretty much just some routine things, and I sent the board a notice, but it wasn't exciting like some of our meetings, other than Jared's presentation.
And OMPOC.
And OMPOC will meet in October, and supposed to be October 17th in Eugene.
That's Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization. And the river crossing, you got some exciting stuff there.
Oh, the river crossing was exciting. Of course, there was a big a big article in the paper which didn't have all of the action that went on, but right now we have selected a design for the bridge. It's going to be a prefab box girder, and it'll look fairly nice. We have gone from everything from a high cable stay bridge similar to what's being built in Portland. The problem with that is the tower would be about 500 feet high and actually would interfere with the glide path to the Salem Airport. So that sort of took it out of the running. And then we looked at the nice arch bridges similar to the Fremont Bridge in Portland and maybe the bridge down at LC Bay. But again, you have a high arch that's over 150 feet above the water, and in that area, it probably wouldn't blend into the landscape very well. So this bridge will sort of just slide through the trees, and it'll have a nice, be a nice appearance. It'll probably be two one-way bridges, so there'll be 2 lanes on each bridge. Should get my notes out here. I should make a point too that my personal feelings, I'm neutral on the bridge, one way or the other. So my only concern is that if we pay for it, it should be paid for by motor vehicles. But some of the concerns about there's a big citizens group out there that is lobbying against the bridge, and they made testimony that we need to retrofit the new bridges or the existing bridges because they need some earthquake seismic retrofits, and they are concerned about the impact on certain neighborhoods along the route, and they're concerned about raising property taxes to pay for the bridge. And they claim that young people are moving to cities that have better transit systems because young people aren't using cars as much. But anyway, that was some of the, I'm just trying to put both sides out there. Some of the costs for this program, estimated costs, the bridge itself with the east side approach would cost about $300 million. Extending Marine Drive on the west side south to Glen Creek would cost about $16 million. Extending Marine Drive north and whipping it back into Wallace Road would cost about $10 million. And then the overpass that will connect Marine Drive to Highway 22 would be about $100 million. And there's going to be a funding workshop sometime in the first week in December, and then the oversight team will meet again on December 11th. So that's the plan for that. It's kind of an exciting project, and it's interesting. And There is, if anybody's interested, there is salemrivercrossing.org, and you can just go on there, and all of this material's there for your perusal.
Great, thank you, Bob. The Citizens Advisory Committee minutes are in your packet, so we won't go in that. Now it's time for board and management issues. General Manager.
I don't have much to report, I'm still catching up from vacation. But just to remind you, the joint board meeting on October 27th, that is confirmed. I know there's been some emails back and forth, it's on, it's off, it's on. It's on. Staff is working, till further notice. Staff is working on agenda development, but it'll focus on a short presentation on the Moving Forward project and the Capturing the Ride project, and then allow for the two boards to discuss transit issues. And also, it'll be more the details will be in my weekly report tomorrow. But next Wednesday, October 1st, we're having the public debut of the bus coming to a stop near you videos that you saw at the work session. We're going to display them. We're inviting all the actors who were involved and the community and all the staff to come and see it first before we roll it out to the schools in our outreach process beginning next month. Starts at 7 p.m., but I'll put all the details, location, and all that in my report tomorrow. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Well, I attended 2 chamber policy meetings, and they're doing candidates for state legislature. They're listening to them and having debates and that type of thing. Very interesting. This last Thursday was a debate between Peter Courtney and Patty Milne. That was very interesting. I attended the retirement of Richard Schmidt over at COG, Council of Governments, and Chamber Forum was Bill Wyatt who's the Executive Director of the Port of Portland. That was real interesting to see what all they do up there. We did have a work session and attended the Red Cross Heroes Breakfast and the Liberty House. Both of those are fundraisers. And Chariot's Picnic had a pretty good turnout and really good hamburgers. Well, I don't know, I think the hot dog was better even than the hamburger, so it was very good. And the COG Executive Committee I mentioned a little earlier. So that was my month. Bob, you've already told us all about most of your stuff.
Oh, no, that was just the busy stuff. I did quite a few things. I went to Richard's retirement also. And I worked with Richard before I was on the board, because when I was managing the state system. I attended the Association of Oregon Rail and Transit Advocates board meeting in Portland on Saturday the 6th. I attended the work session later, and I met with the Southeast Mill Creek Neighborhood Association, and they have a concern about our moving forward also, because they would like to see the bus that goes on Turner Road go at least as far as Lakeside Village. And we've got problems with several of these because it's finding a place to turn the bus around. Yes. And so, but anyway, that's an issue with them, and I'm putting that out here for the record. I attended the Heroes Breakfast at the Salem Conference Center and saw both President Thompson and his wife's picture in the paper this week at that. I rode the South Route 21 and talked about that already. I represented the transit board at the South Gateway Neighborhood Association, where Sadie and Chris talked about and answered questions about Route 21, and we had a lively discussion there. I worked at the Salem Lions Club booth, and that was right next to the transit booth, so we could exchange comments there at Saturday Market. I attended the volunteer recognition event sponsored by the city of Salem, and being a bachelor, that was a free dinner too. So, that's true. And I hate my own cooking. I attended the demo forum, and attended the river crossing, and the SCATS meeting. So I guess that covers it. And I have the next things I think are already on my list there for the meetings for next month.
So I had Bob go to all my meetings for me.
I'll get into town.
No, but so the main thing that I did was the Citizen Advisory Committee, which was City's last. So unfortunately, we'll be missing her. There will be efforts to get a new chair and vice chair. The term of the prior chair is coming to a close, so that's in the works, and we need to follow up with that. And the minutes kind of outline that. Otherwise, school started and soccer been going strong, and it's been great to just develop relationships with the community, attending our neighborhood association meeting, which also had some candidates at it. So it's my report.
John, use your microphone this time.
No. All righty, no Special Transportation Fund meeting this month, coming up next. I've taken advantage of some opportunities to use that 1X going all the way, actually it took the 2X too, all the way to Portland and back. That works surprisingly well. Had a nice day trip up there. There have been a number of meetings of the TripLink Bitch Board, and actually overall things with the call center have been improving somewhat. As I mentioned earlier, they found a new way to go wrong about 2 weeks ago, when trips that you had entered actually got entered multiple times, and if you got a call saying you have expecting to get 2 trips scheduled, you wound up with 6 trips scheduled. And but that was only once, and they appear to have it fixed up. So things are ticking right along, riding a lot of buses, talking to a lot of folks on the buses and on the Cherry Lift, and there's a great deal of interest system-wide on both the fares and the moving forward. I think even though we see that there are some comments about how our public outreach has some gaps, it's also been very effective. We've reached a lot of people, and a lot of folks have comments that they're trying to share.
So it was a busy month. Feels like we were just here yesterday. I don't have any committee reports, but this time I just want to make an announcement on behalf of Director Evans. He couldn't be here this evening. He has a personal family emergency going on. He's on his way to Bend. It's involving his mother. So I just wanted to let everybody know that in case you get a hold of him. So he had texted me and talked to me before the meeting.
So this month, we did not have the Area Commission on Transportation, so they chose to do Richard Schmidt's going away party, which I mentioned earlier, so I did attend that. At the Scan Neighborhood Association, they were not going to have a city councilor, so I talked about the fare increase in the Moving Forward project and had some information there. Attended the Heroes Breakfast, did the work session, went to the Pringle Creek Watershed Council meeting, and talked to people on the telephone about changes to, with the Moving Forward program, changes on 21 and also changes on Route 6, which I'm concerned about because of pulling service from the middle school. So I think that was as much time as I did, aside from some other personal things that took a lot of time.
Thank you, Marcia. One thing I forgot to mention when we went along, I didn't go to this, but the volunteer recognition event that the city put on a week or so ago, the top city volunteer award went to Alan's wife, Josh, and my brother even got an award. And I didn't know he was getting it, or I would have gone. But Josh and Alan were up in Canada someplace, so they decided not to break up their vacation to receive this award.
Well, thank you for that, and on behalf of Josh, thanks. Yeah, we've always gone to this event, and then one year we had a conflict. She gets recognized as Citizen of the Year. But I'm pretty proud of her for that.
Absolutely.
She does a lot of work on behalf of West Salem, so thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier, so. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Just in time, like I just did. There's my sheet for the week.